The next subject this morning is the Coles Levee Ecosystem Preserve of the state of California. Susan Hill and Ronald Rempel will make the presentations. And Mr. Rempel, I take it you are going first.
That's correct. The Coles Levee Ecosystem Preserve is a public-private partnership between the California Department of Fish and Game and ARCO Oil and Gas, or now is called ARCO Western Energy. This partnership created a 6,000-acre mitigation bank southwest of Bakersfield in the southern San Joaquin Valley of California, an area of a hotbed for endangered species. This was the first mitigation bank of its kind within the U.S. and probably worldwide. And I believe that similar innovations to this one will be one of the major keys to solving landscape-level endangered species problems such as we see in the Pacific Northwest with the spotted owl, the scrub jay in Florida, the desert tortoise in the desert Southwest, and the gnatcatcher in Southern California. This program has also provided a lot of spin-off benefits, including recreational and open space amenities for the local community, and it has reduced ARCO's permitting time from 6 to 12 months down to a matter of days.
And if you're an ARCO shareholder, you're probably wondering what's in this for you. The key for ARCO was that the project expedited and simplified the approval process for us to conduct our operation and maintenance activities, as well as new exploration activities. It fixed our endangered species compliance requirements at a point in time which facilitated our planning. The oil and gas industry is very capital intensive, so to facilitate planning, giving us an opportunity to have a degree of certainty with respect to how quickly our projects could be done and in what manner they could be done was very important to us. The project also gave us additional value by allowing us to take lands which had been previously used solely for oil and gas operations, allowing us to sell compensation credits to third parties, which facilitated their own endangered species compliance efforts. As an attorney, this was particularly exciting to me because essentially we created a new property right similar to emission reduction credits. What helps the project work for ARCO is that it created a relationship of trust between a private industry, ARCO, and the regulator, the California Department of Fish and Game, which has allowed for further collaboration between both ARCO and Fish and Game. We've recently added another 740 acres to the preserve.
This program also has other value-added aspects, including resolution of endangered species mitigation problems for a wide variety of small and large businesses, preservation of an area that has been deemed important for the long-term survival of endangered species, which is consistent with a multi-agency planning effort in the southern San Joaquin Valley. But in addition to this, there's some real benefits to the program that are not directly related to ARCO, but are much broader in scope. One is demonstrating that private enterprise has a significant role in the preservation of endangered species, and two, that the presence of endangered species on private lands can create value for the landowners instead of always being looked at as something negative. I believe these two in combination will provide ultimately will ultimately change the national dialogue regarding endangered species and open up new avenues for the conservation of important ecosystems based on partnershiping with broad support from business, industry, agriculture, conservation groups, and the public. We are already working on significant new innovations of a similar nature. We're working with Chevron USA on a 16,000-acre mitigation bank. We're working with what I think is a really exciting thing, even though it's small, with Bank of America. Finally, financial institutions are looking at how their land holdings might be used in this manner to generate income for them. And probably the most significant one, we finally started working with the state of California's public employees retirement system, the largest retirement system in the nation, and how their land holdings and influence with corporations can work to put together mitigation banks to start solving very large problems that have seemed unsolvable in the past.
We'll start with three questions, beginning with Dot and Harriet and Max. Perhaps questions after that.
Fine. I'm very interested in citizen participation aspects of many issues like the ones you've described, and I'm curious to know if you do not think maybe the whole project would not be strengthened if there were a formal role for either a citizen advisory commission, some sort of citizen participation either on the part of environmental groups or good government groups from the citizen perspective and so forth, which I understand is missing from this, and correct me if I'm wrong.
I would say you're correct in the analysis of the Coles Levee ecosystem preserve, but this is just one part of a much larger planning effort of which there is citizen participation, the whole Kern County Valley Floor Habitat Conservation planning effort, which is open to the public, run by the counties, environmental groups and private citizens all participate in that. So this just provides one piece of the larger solution there.
Harriet?
Perhaps you can help me with the concept. I do understand with the emission credits concept where there is a single, let's say, metropolitan environment and you can purchase credits because it all really has the same impact. What I can't quite understand is you create this mitigation bank perhaps in one area and then someone else could be exploring gas oil or whatever and perhaps endangering a species in an entirely different area and purchase a credit from the land banking over here, but does that really solve the problem? Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yes, I completely understand. It's the concept of trying to mitigate in kind for impacts which occur. And those of you who are not familiar with the southern San Joaquin Valley, these species cover an area of about 4,000 square miles. So it really does provide an opportunity for a very large clientele to operate through this mitigation bank, since what we've set up is a set of core preserves and linkages that we feel are critical to the long-term survival.
Max, followed by Luis.
That really deals with my question. It's a quality control question, you know, of trade equal for equal, who does supervise that? How does that actually work?
Frequently, when a person goes to Fish and Game for a project in the San Joaquin Valley, they'll evaluate what species are going to be impacted. And if those species exist at Coles Levee, which Coles Levee has a rich variety of the endangered species that one would find in the San Joaquin Valley, Fish and Game will authorize them to come to us to purchase compensation rights, and for every acre that they impact, they are required to purchase 3 acres of compensation rights for ARCO. Once those are purchased as compensation rights, we have no further surface disturbances within those acres. So actually you have a net increase in areas that are being set aside in perpetuity for conservation. Does that answer that? That's kind of difficult.
Directly, yeah.
Okay.
Luis?
Mr. Rampell, did your office have full authority to enter into this agreement that did not require a waiver or change in rules or regulations?
Early on, I think some folks felt we'd have to change some rules and regulations that the department operated under, but as we got further into the negotiating process, we found that there was nothing that prohibited us from entering into these types of agreements, and the decision was made at the directorate level that in fact we could enter into these types of agreements without changing any rules and regulations.
Any other questions?
This one here.
Oh, yes. Margot?
Do you see any downside to this process for the public or the state?
I would not say necessarily from the state's aspect, but there is obviously a potential for downside there if in fact the operator of the mitigation bank fails to perform their obligations according to the agreement, that in fact we could have problems with the perpetuation of the habitat and the endangered species. We tried to set up our agreements so that if ARCO defaults on their obligations, the department takes over management of the mitigation bank.
Actually, we've received a great amount of public support for this project. Interestingly enough, the criticism to us as an oil company has come from other oil companies.
From other oil companies?
Right, right. So, but the public has been very,
Why
very
is
supportive.
that?
Setting a precedent that, boy, we're going to be expected to comply with the Endangered Species Acts now too. Well, they should have been doing it all along.
Well, that concludes, unless
Well, yeah,
Hubert, you
just-
want to follow?
I was wondering whether or not this issue of public commentary is a question that's lingering. And I was wondering whether or not you've had any review by environmentalist groups of the contract and the arrangement, and whether or not there was any written response to that.
The environmental groups did not review the contract, but the environmental groups were very much aware as we put this program together, and actually provided docents at the dedication of the preserve and everything, and very supportive, because what we put together was consistent with what the environmental groups had been pushing for as far as the preservation of the Coles Levee area.
Could you just run off about 2 or 3 or 4 of those groups that support the program?
The Nature Conservancy was very supportive. The Audubon Society, the local folks were very supportive, and some of the local Sierra Club folks were very supportive, but it was operated on a local level rather than through their national organizations.